Let's get you breaking updates now coming in. Donald Trump has slammed radical Islamic terrorism at the White House Hanukkah event. Trump opened the White House Hanukkah celebration by sending love and prayers to the people of Australia following the anti-Semitic terrorist attack at Sydney's Bondi beach. The US President Donald Trump opened the Hanukkah celebrations by mentioning terrorism, by mentioning the Australia attack. The Republican urging the nations to unite against radical Islam after an Islamic State-inspired Sydney terror attack claimed the lives of 15 people, injuring over 25 people.
Let me take a moment to send the love and prayers to our entire nation, to the people of Australia, and especially all those affected by the horrific and anti-Semitic terrorist attack, and that's exactly what it is, anti-Semitic, that took place on a Hanukkah celebration in Sydney. What a terrible, terrible thing. We don't learn. We're joined in mourning all of those who were killed, and we're praying for the swift recovery of the wounded. Some are very horrifically wounded, as you probably know. All nations must stand together against the evil forces of radical Islamic terrorism, and we're doing that.
Senior consulting editor Srinjoy Chaudhary joins us on the broadcast. And Srinjoy, the US president talking about the Australia attack, and it's an important message. He says it's the world versus radical Islam.
The world has to get together to fight radical Islam, is what President Donald Trump has said. This, of course, is about the Hanukkah, which is the festival of lights, of celebration, a Jewish festival that was happening in Australia. Now, on Bondi Beach, you had two men with weapons attacking people who were celebrating Hanukkah. This was a few days ago. The final unfortunate case is that 15 people have been killed, including a 10-year-old child, and about 25 people have been injured. That's a huge number, and it could have been worse, but for the fact that one or two people there actually fought with the attackers and ensured that more casualties did not happen. Nevertheless, it's a huge tragedy for the people of Australia and the world. And President Trump making it very clear that radical Islam has to be fought not just by America or Australia, but by the whole world.
Okay, all right. And the US president spoke about this, and he called it anti-Semitic, and this comes at a time when several Jewish leaders, including the Israeli Prime Minister, has also said that Australia was warned about the increasing anti-Semitism, and yet no action was taken, alleging that this tragedy could have been averted. And it were two men who opened fire on a peaceful gathering there at the beach. The US president spoke about this. Here's what he said. So, Srinjoy, this comes amid questions also being raised on the Australian government, including the Israeli Prime Minister also mentioning that there have been multiple messages that were given to the Australian government over the anti-Semitism and the increasing threat to the Jewish community, and yet enough action was not taken.
Yes, that is what the Israeli Prime Minister says. He believes that there were moments when it was apparent that something like this could happen, but that is based on his assessment.
Yes.
The Israeli Prime Minister believes that this is something that could have been avoided. That is really his assessment and his government's assessment, perhaps. That is not something the Australians have entirely agreed with.
Yes, in fact, President Trump went on to say that we don't learn. My apologies, Srinjoy, I'll come back to you in just a moment. We have former diplomat KP Fabian also on the broadcast with us. How do you look at the statement that has come in from the US President Donald Trump, who says that it's time the world wakes up to radical Islam?
Well, President Trump is right, but I think we have to ask deeper questions. Why is that there is radical Islam? And in the case of Bondi Beach, what happened in Australia, I condemn it absolutely. But my view is that it's not enough to condemn terrorism. So it's also necessary to understand the big picture. And what we have to understand is that if a father and son decide to kill so many people and in the process die, why do they do that? Well, it is probably because they were responding to something else. And in the case of these two, of course, they have said of IS. Well, that may or may not be correct. But we also have to understand what is happening in Palestine. I'm not justifying. I'm only trying to understand. And coming to President Trump, yes, again, under his rule, individual attacks have been taking place in the United States. Brown University recently. What has he done about gun control?
Okay, so US faces bigger questions of gun control, you're saying, but nothing, the violence that we saw in Australia, unacceptable, and enough action should be taken. Australian government says that they will make it stricter. Australia does even currently have one of the strictest gun laws in the world. Thank you for joining us on the broadcast, Mr. Fabian. Let's go across to Srinjoy Chaudhary. And Srinjoy, you were mentioning the kind of action that Australia is taking as well. Before I come to you, we also have Mr. Rabinder Sachdev on the broadcast with us. And Mr. Sachdev, the statement that the US president has made is that we don't learn. This is a terrible thing to happen. This is an anti-Semitic attack, and that's what I'm calling it. And he says that the world must fight radical Islam.
Thank you. Oh, yes. I think the key lies in what you're saying. His statement is that we do not learn. The issue is that the matter of radical Islam has slid down in priority for the United States since long. And also for Europe, I would say, for the West. They have other matters which are top on the agenda on priority. Radical Islam is not in the top of the priority issues of concern for the West and for the United States, most unfortunately. So, this is a reminder that radical Islam globally is an evil which must be, it cannot be rooted out, but must be mitigated to the maximum extent. So I hope that this serves as a reminder to United States, to Trump, to bring back the issue of radical Islam as one of the top matters on their agenda.
Okay, all right. Mr. Sachdev, thank you for joining us on the broadcast. And Srinjoy, President Trump saying we don't learn. Yes, there are questions also being raised on the US, on the gun laws, but that's not the case in Australia, where one of the two terrorists had an license for guns, and Australia has one of the strictest gun laws in the world. They are bringing in more changes, but Donald Trump says that we are not learning, that we don't learn lessons despite multiple such incidents.
Yes, the most worrying aspect about this one is the fact that here are two people in Australia, far away from the Middle East, and yet they are followers of ISIS. Now, where is ISIS about? What is ISIS about? Where is it from? It's from, generally speaking, Syria and Iraq and the Lebanon and places like that. Suddenly, thousands of miles away in Sydney, there are two people, father and son, who are followers of ISIS. And that is what is worrying people. Because if you are in Australia, across two continents, suddenly you find ISIS supporters. That is the worrying thing. And that is something that should be followed up, and actually this is where action has to be taken. How is it that two people in Australia are followers of ISIS, and in near Syria and Iraq and the Lebanon and so on.
Yes.
So that's something that has to be kept in mind. Now, of course, this is such a terrible attack. And if these two people have been ISIS followers, they are really following a terrorist organization.
Yes.
So whether this is a terrorist organization of the worst kind, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, they are major terrorist organizations. And here are two people in Australia where ISIS has no footprint.
Absolutely. And the questions on whether there was an intel failure as well. Let's play out what the US President Donald Trump said. This was his message in the Hanukkah celebrations of the White House.
Let me take a moment to send the love and prayers to our entire nation, to the people of Australia, and especially all those affected by the horrific and anti-Semitic terrorist attack, and that's exactly what it is, anti-Semitic, that took place on a Hanukkah celebration in Sydney. What a terrible, terrible thing. We don't learn. We're joined in mourning all of those who were killed, and we're praying for the swift recovery of the wounded. Some are very horrifically wounded, as you probably know. All nations must stand together against the evil forces of radical Islamic terrorism, and we're doing that.
Thanking Shinjay for joining us with all those inputs and slipping into a quick break here. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.